Welcome to Eye on the Illini, the halftime edition. This is Mike Kegley with Brad Sturdy, Kedrick Prince. Guys, couple seconds here, real quick. Thoughts on the Illini Nebraska clash at Memorial Stadium in Lincoln, Brad?
No, I mean, Illini offense has looked really good. I mean, they've moved the ball extremely well. I think their big issue has been obviously the fumble, the turnover led to points, and then a bad call took the ball away, and that's a really game changing call because the reality is that if Illinois had gotten that, been able to run out that clock and score like a field goal, even if they get the 15-yard face back, now you're in a situation where you have the ball, you score, you got the lead, and you get the ball to start the second half. Now you're down 7, and you get the ball, and you got to score.
Yeah, I'm just a little bit. I mean, to me the turnover hurt. That was bad timing because they scored on it. I think another key possession when they went forward, and Zakari Franklin has great hands. Even he should have caught the pass. I mean, I don't think he would have got a first down, but I thought that was huge. And then you come out, and then you give them the ball. Well, they score with that. With about a few seconds left to go in the half. Their receivers are huge. They're just really, really big, and they're in the game. I mean, and it's a game that I think that they can win. Another complaint. I just, Brad, before you got on, we were talking about just having, I think Fagan's a great athlete. I just don't want to see him out the middle. They have to find ways to get him to run the ball. He's a little bit quicker than what people think, but just running him up the middle is too predictable for me.
Yeah, I think there's some things to work on. Obviously, I think the refs have had an interesting evening. There have been a few calls here and there that you just kind of wonder about, but overall, that last one was a big one, and the Illini are going to have to figure out a way to overcome. Brett Bielema is going to have to decide that we're not going to get too upset and move forward on this. They can't be looking backwards. They got to be looking at the second half. So let's go to what we were talking about today. The Illini men's basketball, the conference schedule came out for the Big Ten. Brad, did anything jump out at you when you took a look at this the first time, and anything, any thoughts come out at you?
Well, the early games, I think, you're at Northwestern, Wisconsin. Those are both games that I think are winnable. Wisconsin at home and at Northwestern. And they're games that, probably should win, in all sincerity. And so your December games are good. I like that, having a good start. And then you go west. Well, I like the West Coast games. They're on break. It's when the students are not going to be around at Oregon and Washington. So that's a good thing. And then the other thing I thought was interesting is there's a couple of tough little road trips going at Rutgers and then coming back and going to Minnesota. I think that's a tough little double. Rutgers obviously going to be tough with their young guys that are so talented. And I think then you go to Minnesota. I know they're not great, but that's the kind of game that you could actually win or lose because of that. So I think that's tough. And then I think at the end of the year, you've got that Purdue game that looms large, maybe for the Big Ten title.
Well, for me, I'm going to break it down a little bit different. The first thing I look at was the away games and track games. Illinois doesn't play well at Penn State. They don't go to Penn State. Maryland has owned Illinois. They don't go to Maryland. And they don't go to Iowa, which is also another place. Granted, they went out those places last year, but those are tough places. I look at right away the home schedule and some of those teams that I'm not saying that those teams are like typically I'll use Maryland, that they could possibly win the Big Ten. But having said that, not having to go there and play them is big because Illinois has struggled with them, since Coach Underwood's been there. I like the schedule overall. The home games. I like the West Coast trip. I said I wasn't going to say anything what Brad said, but you're right. When they go out west right away, when the kids are on break against Oregon and Washington, I think that's huge because it makes a difference even if the games are in Champaign. And I guess I'm assuming they're going to stay out there, because everybody talked about the travel and how that's going to work. There's a 3-day turnaround, so I do like that part of it.
Yeah, I also think I would much rather be in Oregon and Washington in January than I would Central Illinois. So I think from a weather standpoint, that might be a really good deal for the Illini. The other thing is, as you look at this, playing Michigan State twice, they're always going to be a tough team. I do look at that Purdue game as being incredible. And then now that Luke Goody has said that Illinois really isn't much of a rival on Twitter, I'm wondering if that Indiana game, which is going to be a big game anyway, but I wonder if Illinois goes in there and tries to show them that not only is it a rivalry game, but Illinois is back to winning those on a regular basis. I guess the other thing we should talk about that is big news for Illini basketball would be what we have been hearing about Tim Anderson. And Brad, why don't you start it? And then Ked, obviously you're very close with the coach, with Coach Anderson. You can kind of go after that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's, obviously, if you've been on the Illini guys' message boards, this isn't anything that's new. I mean, I think it was Ked and I have been talking about this a bit. With it, he hasn't really been around. He's been on leave. Now they just announced it. We know that, they've got a replacement in there for now, a temporary replacement. So, yeah, I think that in this case, Tim Anderson and Illinois are not kind of seeing eye to eye. Tim's having a tough time with some things on a personal level, trying to work through things from, his own, mindset and how that's going to work out. And, you hope that somehow they can figure it out, though, because he's a valuable piece to this coaching staff and this university, and hopefully they can figure something out. But right now, it doesn't look very promising.
No, it doesn't, and I do too. I mean, Tim's a huge asset. When you look at recruiting, my favorite thing about Tim, he's always told me, when he really, really wants a guy, he would always challenge me and say to me, "Tell me I didn't go get him." He's really good. Tim's a very, very aggressive guy, and he's really good at selling players the vision. And if you're from the Chicagoland area, Tim is well connected. I mean, you go anywhere to a basketball bench in Chicago, I mean, it's hard to sit and talk to him because every, 2 feet, somebody's talking to him and shaking his hand. So that part's going to sing. It doesn't look promising. I'm not going to sit and lie to the people listening at this, but there's still a slight chance. Every time I talk to him, I'll throw up a couple percentage, chances, what are the chances? And he'll throw up that praise sign. So his heart's still in it, so that's a big sign to me. I just think there's a lot going on behind the scenes that we're just not allowed, able to say at this point. When he's ready to say those things with the university, so be it. But, it's kind of obvious, I guess, if you will. But he's a huge asset, and fans love him, and he loves the fans.
Yeah, and I think, he's a guy who kind of like he always gets his man. I think that will be a difference. Brad, do you have any idea? I know it'd be total speculation, but how do you think the actual players will take it, being that, some of these guys were recruited by Tim and certainly, he's a big skills and development guy.
I think the guys are a little bit, it's different things. They've asked him to come back. I mean, he's had guys texting him and saying, "Hey, please come back." I think the guys who recruited him definitely wanted to come back. And there's always going to be emotions. What Ked mentioned about what a great recruiter is, part of the reason he's such a great recruiter is because he does connect so well with people. And he's so good. He's a relationship-based guy. And so he has that. Now, here's the thing. Now it's a relationship situation that he wants to work out. So it's really something that's passionate to him. I think the same thing with the players. He's really passionate about that. And I think it's difficult for him not to be there for his players. And I think they would love for him to come back. I think they're fine. I mean, it's not like they don't like the guys, coaches that are there, but it's just different because that isn't our guy, right? I mean, that's not our guy. So,
well, they know. I mean, they've known. It's pretty obvious when a guy recruits you and he hasn't been there and he's not there. So he's talked to them, and kudos to the staff and to Tim. Tim has talked to every one of the staff members about the players. The three I'm going to mention is, Ty Rogers and Drayvon Gibbs Lawhorn and Morris Johnson. Those are three guys at the top of my head that I know that are there only because of Tim. So, he's told all those parents and those players, you're going to be fine. And there's no bad blood left with the staff. And, he has reassured all those players and parents that they're going to be taken care of.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing as we look at that. You really do enjoy He's been really positive for the Illini over the course of this time, and we want to see the best for him more than anything else. As we take a look, let's bounce back into the schedule. Brad, if you were going to tell me what maybe the basement for the Illini team is, and maybe what you think the ceiling is in terms of that Big Ten schedule, I'm assuming 20-0 is your ceiling.
I don't think they'll be 20-0, but I think the ceiling's I think 17-3 is probably the best case scenario you could hope for. I think somewhere between 12-8 and 17-3. I mean, I'm going to give a wide range there because it's so early, but
Right.
if I had to pick right now, I'm thinking 14 or 15 wins, right around 14-6, 15-5.
I'm going to say 15 right off the bat because I think there'll be some learning curves, especially when you go on the road to places like Michigan State. Non-conference is different, but the Big Ten schedule is tough, and we know how good the coaching is, and it's still a young squad. So if they get 15 wins out of this 16, that's great to me.
Yeah, that's kind of I was really hoping 15-5 would be where I was hoping this team would be able to get to. And the one thing I think that both Illinois and Rutgers in particular have an advantage of is with new and or young players, both teams will probably get significantly better as the season goes on. I do think the other thing that's incredible is you look at this schedule and you're going to play a team like Rutgers that has some high level potential in February, UCLA in February. You have Michigan State and Wisconsin. And I think there's another team that they're playing in February that's pretty impressive as well. That's a pretty tough slate of games, don't you think, Brad?
It is. I mean, it's a tough closing stretch. After you get that back-to-back road games at Rutgers, at Minnesota, then you've got UCLA, Michigan State, at Wisconsin, Iowa, at Michigan, and Purdue. Those are not easy. That's not an easy gauntlet.
And was Duke on the 20? Was Duke
Duke
in
is
February
22nd, right in
Yeah.
the middle there. After they go to Wisconsin, they've got Duke there in the middle. That's a tough stretch. I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. That's a tough way to finish. But we've seen Brad Underwood's teams tend to finish well. You know, they tend to finish well at the end of the season, and they figure out some things. So you kind of just you feel like they're going to be pretty good at that point of the year.
I'll close with this. I'll tell you, Illinois has had a lot of fun beating Michigan over the years. They only go to Michigan. I think the days of just sweeping them going 2-0 is going to be tough. I think they have a lot of talent, and I think they have a much better coach. So they don't get them in Champaign, but they go to Ann Arbor late in the year. So, which I think, it's in March. So they don't come to Champaign this year. So having said that, the days of sweeping Michigan every season, it's going to be tough. It's doable, but it's going to be tough.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I do think when we look at this season, this is a team that has in my opinion, maybe a higher ceiling than last year's team, but it also probably has a lower floor just because there are so many X factors.
Yeah.
Brad, is there any information, any updates on Ivisic and how that situation is going, or maybe even a comparison to what his brother went through last year?
Well, his is a little bit different. He has to. It's amateur status. It's whether or not whatever he took money on. It's funny. I mean, I know if you think about it, I have to make sure I didn't get paid enough, so when I come to get paid to play, that I'm still an amateur. It's dumb.
But that's the NCAA.
It's the NCAA, so this is what we should be used to. But no, I think the issue is trying to prove that he was paid expenses and not over that or over a certain amount. And I think it'll work out. His brother, he started in October and he was cleared sometime in December. They started this process in July, so that should mean he's back before the season starts. But again, we're dealing with the NCAA, so we just don't know. We just don't know how it's going to shake out. And I guess we'll find out.
No, I've not heard anything different, to tell you the truth, Mike. I really haven't. Except for they're positive and they think that there's, they don't see any flaws why he can't play, but that's what they're supposed to say.
Yeah. And any comments before we wrap up here and get ready for the second half of the Illinois-Nebraska game? Any comments on any of the recruits that we've seen, particularly obviously the recent commitment? Any description you might want to give to the fans?
Yeah, I love Keaton Wagler. I think he's a guy who can put the ball in the basket. He's 6'6". He plays. He's kind of a combo. He handles it well. His ability to shoot off the dribble is impressive. Whether it's pull-up jump shots, whether it's balls off the dribble from three, where it's catch and shoot, he's really good there. He's a winner too. I mean, his high school team was undefeated, and then he went 35-4 this summer. So this is an impressive kid. And the other thing I like about him, I think, is that he is going to be. He reminds me, if you want a comparison, how about Cam Christie that played at Minnesota last year? And he went, I think that's the type of kid he is. Now, will he be that player as a freshman on this team? I don't know. It depends who's back, but he's got chances by his sophomore year. I think he'll get in the weight room. He'll be stronger. I think he's going to be really good.
My thing is kick and shoot the basketball, and everybody that Brad Underwood is recruiting, that's, he used to be passing. Now he wants every kid that can stroke a basketball. He doesn't care about rankings, even though he's a 4-star out of the top 150. But still, I mean, kid can put the ball in the basket, and that's, at the end of the day, that's what matters. And I think they'll be able to run some good stuff for him to get him shots.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities there, and with 15 scholarships now, there's a chance to kind of put people and kind of hide them, so to speak, from and get them a chance to develop, and then the players have to decide, what they want to do as they improve their skill set. But we do know Illinois, as a developmental program, has the abilities to get guys substantially better. So with that, folks, we are going to wrap this up and get back to the game. Illinois has a 17-10 deficit. They get the ball to start the second half, and they've got to get that first half out of their mind, see what they can do to slow down this Husker machine. Brad and Ked, thank you so much for coming on.
See you guys. Good job. Go Illini.